Thank you for having us, Monstercat. It is a pleasure to be here. We are Survios. My name is Roger Zhao. I am the music supervisor on Electronauts. In case you're not familiar, Electronauts is a virtual reality remix and production tool. It's available now on major virtual reality platforms like the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, and the PlayStation VR. Recently, we partnered with our friends at Monstercat to put out a new content update. It's got 4 tracks from the Monstercat catalog, including absolute bangers from Pegboard Nerds, Snails, Haywyre, Bad Computer, and Droptek. During this half-hour of programming, we're going to dive into the original songs, and you can hear them in their entirety. And then after that, we're going to show you a fun kind of jam remix session that we did with those songs through Electronauts. Next up, we're going to talk about Bad Computer, his track Disarray.
Disarray, yes.
And I'm joined here by Christian, a.k.a. Human Animal.
Hello.
Christian, do you want to explain a little bit about your creative process in approaching this track?
Yeah, so with all of the songs, I would listen to them many, many times and pick apart, okay, what's going to be the backing track, what's going to be on loopers, what's going to be instruments, like what easily comes out at me, right? That's the first part. And then you go through and you break it down. And then you're like, oh, this actually doesn't work as a looper. This doesn't work as an instrument. And so that's when you kind of have to, trial and error a lot.
Fantastic. And what are a couple design decisions that, if you want to give an example of that?
Okay, yeah. So the drop, it's very big, and it has that really cool bass and kind of like mid-register like synth. And at first I was going to put that as a looper, and that would give you very limited control, just volume, basically. And Henry actually was like, let's put that in as an instrument, cut it up as an instrument, let's see how that plays. And it played awesome. Like, it's really, really cool when you go from build, you go to the drop, and it's just bam. Like, because that bass sound is so well designed on its own, I barely had to do anything to it to make it stand out even more, to make it cohesive with the whole rest of the track.
Droptek. That song is a crazy banger. It was really fun to work on, and it was definitely a pretty hard track to figure out what was going to be where, because it relies so heavily on just the bass locking in with the kicks and the snares, like any big heavy bass tune. But once I realized that those basses belong on those loopers, it was game over. It's so fun to jump between the different like bass sections of the track, but over different sections of the song. It really makes it so that you can create your own drops and have them sound extremely unique. And in the original song, if you listen to it, the dark melodies and the more so in the background just like create this haunting kind of vibe. And between your control on the loopers in the game with the bass sounds and your ability to actually play those melodies the way you want to, you can completely reform how the track sounds and like really bring it down and take out the basses, or really like focus on those melodies and make it kind of this haunting, flowing half-time drum and bass like tune, or just like kind of low pass the basses. It's so fun. You can do so much with it, and it was a really fun challenge.
The next track coming up is Haywyre Memory, and I'm joined here by David Westbaum, aka Asteroids and Earthquakes.
What up, what up?
David, what are your thoughts about how you went about cutting up Memory, and what stood out to you about that entire creative process?
Well, actually, like, Haywyre stood out originally. Once we got the Monstercat deal, we were able to look through pretty much the whole discography of what they had, and I've been a longtime fan of Haywyre, and he's a brilliant producer, and I thought his tracks would just jump out in this game as really fun to play. So first of all, I picked this track because it's a no-brainer. It was the vocal chops in my head seemed perfect to play on those orbs. The bass line, like, of the different sections, there's just plenty of different sections. So some tracks in this game were harder to decide what goes where, and this one just was from the get-go. It was pretty much, I knew exactly where I wanted it to go. But yeah, so putting the vocals on the orbs, it was kind of new at the time, and we ended up doing that quite a bit since we cut this track up. It's so fun because Haywyre set that song up with the vocal chopped melody, but now you can make your own vocal chopped melody super easily and switch up the whole way he saw the vocal chops, and it sounds, no matter what you do, it sounds incredible. His vocal processing is incredible, and I think that's the funnest thing to play on this certain track. But yeah.
And you cut up the bass as well, right? That funky bass guitar.
There was just so much there with the bass to work with. I did dig it to try to find out who the bassist was, or if it was programmed, or if he played it on the keyboard, which I believe that too. But I don't know who played it, but that bass line is unbeatable. It's so good. So there was a lot to choose from for the backing tracks. The different song sections that you can choose all have a different funky bass line with different fills in it, so you can really kind of switch up the sections pretty easily.
Now, when you actually play the track itself in Electronauts, like you're in the steering wheel here, what do you like doing first? Like, how do you go about deconstructing the track and reconstructing it? What are your favorite instruments to jam out to?
Yeah, I'm a big Journey guy. I don't necessarily, a lot of people jump into Electronauts and just go straight for that build, right to the drop, jam out, hit up everything. But with this track, you can really strip it down. Just start with that, like, kind of housey new disco backing, hi-hat, and just kind of add the kick in, filter in, use the reverb to kind of bring in one element. And then all of a sudden I like sequencing one of the vocals and then build it up, then into the drop. I take so long to drop a song. I think the dance floor would be pretty upset with me, but I like the journey. And then once you're in this track, you just lose yourself. You can just really jam and grow and grow and grow.
Up next, we've got Snails and Pegboard Nerds Deep in the Night. And we're joined again by Christian.
Yo!
Yeah. So do you want to talk about how you go about deconstructing a track like this? And this one is a little bit different. It's such a full-bodied track, definitely a club banger. How do you go about even approaching this?
Kind of like the Bad Computer song, there's just like, the stems were huge. There was, the files were, I think it was like 100 stems or something. So there was a lot to pick through, and when there's a lot to pick through, that means you have the resources to make it very like a wide range of options. So it makes it a little hard, but it also makes it more fun. So when when you're listening to this song, that drop is obviously very technical sounding, and there's like each 4 bars there's a switch up, or there's a different like either escalating noise or de-escalating noise. So I decided to put those on loopers and give you control over which part of that drop you wanted to have going.
And when you go about playing the track in person in Electronauts, like how do you go about doing that? What kind of journey do you like leading people on?
I mean, it depends on the song, but with this one, you definitely want to get to the drop. This one is all about the drop. And I really liked how they built their drop, because the kick snare is very simple, but it has like, they had different beginnings to them. So some of them had like nothing going on in the first bar of it, and then it kicks in. And so when you put that against the loopers that we cut up, they it just makes it sound really, really dynamic. And, you know, it gives you this switch up that a lot of the other songs don't have, because it's 4 to the floor, or every single time you hit drop, it's always that on the 1 and on the 3, you know? So this one had a big difference in terms of the backing tracks.
Hey, this is Snails, and I'm so stoked to see how you remix my song in Electronauts.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you guys tune in and checking out what we can do in Electronauts with the Monstercat catalog. Before we take off here, now we're going to show you a quick little tutorial video. That way you have a better understanding of the features of Electronauts, which is really, truly a wonderful remix and production tool in virtual reality, which is available now. Check it out.